Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another Dokkan Battle Animation Analysis video. And ladies and gentlemen, I am ecstatic because we finally get to take a look at the 8th anniversary LRs. That is right, we get to deep dive into these animations, pick them apart, and see what we can find. These are going to be some beefy animation analysis videos, so buckle in, get you popcorn, everything you need, grab a couple of link level stages that you need to do, because these animations alone for the GT boys are 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and you guys know even when it's like a minute 30, these videos usually take a long time, so get ready for a big one. Now, a couple of things before we do start the video. For one, it is a little bit unfortunate because I usually like to do these videos, and especially if I wait just a little bit to do them while still trying to do them as quickly as possible, for somebody to come out with a comparison between the source material from the anime to the stuff from the animations in Dokkan. Sometimes I get it, and sometimes I don't. It just kind of depends on what people do. And unfortunately, it seems like Giad is not going to be making the GT version until tomorrow. This is the version for the Buu Saga LR, and you can see here I asked if he's going to be making the GT one, and he said the GT one will be made tomorrow. And the other individual that I usually use for this, which is Kevin X, my man has not uploaded a GT version of this, so I think it kind of makes sense considering the fact that everybody's basically more excited for the Buu Saga LRs, so I will use that a little bit in their video, but I do want to apologize that the GT boys are not necessarily going to be getting the same treatment. That is just kind of a, it is what it is. Obviously, I got to get these videos out as soon as possible for them to do better. And as much as I would love to wait, your boys got to film them now. You got to understand the YouTube grind. So we will obviously take everything with a grain of salt when it comes to that sort of thing. Obviously, there are a lot of moments where Dokkan tries to be as accurate as possible to the source material, and it ends up kind of coming out a little bit weird because sometimes the source material is at fault rather than Dokkan itself. Besides all that, the other thing that I always like to mention in the beginning of these videos is that I am not a professional. Obviously, I am not a professional animator or anything like that. I just love Dokkan animations. I data mine the assets. I know how these animations are put together and how they work on the back end. So I have a pretty good feeling. I think I know what makes a good one and what makes a stinky one. And thankfully, we're really not going to be looking at much stink today because these animations are pretty good. And keep in mind, when it comes to whether I think these animations are good or bad, it is just my opinion. Obviously, you are free to still enjoy them whether you disagree with me or not, and so am I. I can still think they're stinky and still enjoy the animations because there are many units that's the case. However, we've been dawdling long enough. Let's go ahead and actually get into the video, considering we have quite a bit to get through today. So as per usual, we are going to watch through these videos at the regular speed, and then we will go ahead and watch these in the slowdown. So these units are really interesting because the GT boys have one more animation technically than the Buu Saga boys, which is kind of interesting because they have the 12 key super attack, they have the 18 key super attack, actually it might be two more. They have the 18 key super attack though, which is the one that you're currently seeing on screen now. And then, besides this animation looking very nice, definitely love the Dragon Fist, we have the standby skill activation. What was that team comp, by the way? We have GOKU obviously lying here, and this is of course when, I guess you could technically consider this an exchange, but it's still just a standby skill. It's kind of weird because obviously it technically exchanges into another character, right? But obviously this is when Vegeta and the rest of the Super Saiyans pull up to assist Goku while he's charging up the Spirit Bomb. And then these guys get a 12 key and a 18 key super, which is pretty cool. I definitely gotta say the lighting in this super is fantastic. The entirety of all these GT supers is very aesthetically pleasing and very loyal to the original source material, which is really cool. But yeah, obviously this here then is the 18 key. I think in my opinion, I definitely like the animations for GT, Goku, and Vegeta better than these guys. In some points, in other points, I think these are better. It's a little bit of a toss-up for me, to be honest with you. When we actually go through the animations, we can skip this part, of course. But they also have a revival finish skill, I believe is the correct terminology for that. Obviously, considering the anniversary just started, your boy is still trying to get used to all of the terminology to use for these and whatnot. But obviously, this is Goku charging the Spirit Bomb here, which looks fantastic, if I do say so myself. Really, really like this animation quite a bit. Very, very nice. Definitely love the effects of the lighting too. They definitely nailed that for sure. We obviously have Goku throw a Spirit Bomb here, and we have him take down Omega with a Stinky Sprite. The Stinky Sprite always makes me laugh, I'm not gonna lie. Fire KO Scream, by the way, so good. Definitely like that. So that's all their animations. Very interesting, because obviously compared to the Boost Saga boys, they only have the 2, 12 key and 18 key super attack. They have the standby skill, and then they have the 2 finish skill. So they have 5 animations, while these guys have the 18 key and the 12 key. They have the standby skill, they have the 18 key and the 12 key, and then they have the finish skill. So yes, they do have one more animation than these guys. I guess you would technically call it the revival finish skill, because obviously, they revive to activate it. It's very interesting that all these things have different names when they're kind of the same, but also kind of not really. It's a very wacky game for a wacky world we live in with Dokkan. But let's go ahead and start out our journey through this unit's animations here. Obviously, we start off with this very nice shot of Goku and Vegeta standing here with their hair slash fur blowing in the wind. Definitely a very nice opening shot, if I do say so myself. That card art right on the screen. I almost have a feeling that they included this right here just to have something to put before the card art, because maybe they were just like, yeah, we don't really want to interrupt, everything that's going on here with these super attacks. But I like this a lot. I think it's really cool personally. It's definitely a very nice intro sequence for sure. So we have both of them standing on the cliff here. I will say it is a little bit weird with them starting out, because they're not really like standing on the cliff. Obviously, Goku is squatting, I guess you would call this. I'm not even really sure what you would call this, to be honest. But they both do jump forward, which looks okay. Obviously, when it comes to smaller sprites, I think it's a little bit more forgiving, because of course they're so far away. This change for Vegeta can be a little bit jarring, but I don't even really notice it when I'm watching these animations. It's kind of too far away yet to even really matter. But I think Goku's movement here is very nice. I like how they transition between these assets, right? They kind of keep in the same one for a little bit, but they move it just enough to have it really feel like it's kind of 3D, moving at a nice angle over the camera, which is pretty cool, even though Vegeta is basically just a moving PNG the entire time. But obviously your focus is not really on him for this animation. Really nice angle with Goku here, by the way. Definitely love this angle of him sweeping past the camera here. I love when they do dynamic stuff like this, and I love when they do different animation techniques like this, like stretching the character to kind of give you that perspective, like you're looking at the feet and the character's top half, or I guess it would be more like his shins, thighs here. Kind of hard to tell with the baggy pants and how short he is, but obviously with Goku here, right, kind of being a little bit stretched out, it's a very cool perspective as he sort of flies forward towards Omega. Definitely love the look of that for sure. Obviously he flies forward, and we have the punch here, which I think the punch, looking at it in the slow-mo, looks a little bit choppy here. Not this, but this shot right here looks a little bit but to be honest with you, when I'm watching it, I'm not really noticing that choppiness, and there is still a little bit of minimal movement on all this little stuff. It's nice to see that they actually did, again, pay attention to the tail and the obi belt tassels tasseling around. Tasseling around? Is that the right word? I don't know if that's a real word or not. Anyway, we have Goku punch Omega, which I think looks pretty good. The impact frame is a nice way to transition between the frames. Vegeta flying forward looks really cool here. Definitely love this angle of obviously the front-facing one. Again, lots of nice details with Vegeta's arms actually moving, right? His legs actually moving, and his tail actually moving a little bit too, which is very nice. We have him disappear right before the camera, which is a great effect. Definitely like that. And obviously my man sort of tags in to then double team Omega with a hit to the back. Interesting, because the sprite is so big, it is kind of hard to see what Vegeta is actually doing here, right? Obviously this is clearly a punch, but it'll be interesting to see when you fight like a smaller sprite, like if somebody could fight Chaozu or something like that, and see how this animation looks. That would definitely be interesting. We have Omega fly away and Vegeta actually teleport under, which is another great little piece of perspective here. I definitely love that. He kicks up, which you can actually see. It is kind of hard to tell because, again, the sprite, but he does kick into Omega. This is, again, the type of thing where, like, I understand that they put the sprites that they do in here for thematics, but man, sometimes like this, I really wish that it was just like a smaller sprite so we could see more of the animation. I guess, to be fair, not many people besides little old me are going to be pausing on this section of the animation anyway, but I digress. Obviously, we have Omega get kicked away. Love this little air effect that they have for the sprite. Vegeta flying up too. Unfortunately, he is just kind of a moving PNG. That is something interesting that I'm noticing with this guy a lot. Something interesting too that I noticed overall with the GT boys is I feel like their super attacks are, I don't want to say less quality, but I feel like they have a lot more like Dokkan original stuff in them. From the way that there's not a lot of movement in a lot of this stuff, it kind of feels like that this was sort of thrown together. And I don't mean that in the way that it looks bad, I just mean like it's definitely not the ones that you can easily tell that are taken right out of the anime, right? Vegeta's movement here, though, is pretty good. I do like him actually getting ready into position here with the little bit of movement that they have from him. I actually do quite like that. Definitely very, very nice. The little bit of whoop getting into position there is very cool. Kind of weird that he has his hands above his head here open, and there isn't really like a transitional frame of him closing his hands. You just pan to him already having his hands closed. Not necessarily the worst thing, you know, because obviously it's sort of implied movement that he got his hands there, but it would still be cool. Regardless, though, obviously we have the man with his hands over his head, and I definitely like this shot a lot. The angle is very nice, and look at those hands. Speaking of hands, very, very cool. I really like this. First of all, the blur effect is very nice, but obviously this angle kind of passing the fists through over the camera is a very, very nice touch with Vegeta making impact with Omega here. Very, very cool. I like the follow through on that. And then obviously we have Goku do the Kamehameha. I gotta say, Goku definitely doesn't look the best here, if I'm being honest with you. I think he actually looks quite ugly, to be honest with you. Definitely, I like the lighting effects and whatnot, and the actual Kamehameha effects. But I definitely feel like that this SA is just lacking in a lot of areas. I think overall that's just kind of how I feel about it, right? With Goku's Kamehameha, I'm always kind of disappointed by the Kamehamehas that are very, like, I don't want to say too simplistic, but feel like they don't really have a lot to them, right? They cut to this shot of it kind of being behind him, which is okay, but then immediately we cut to this, and there really isn't much. They kind of try and mask this transition with him throwing his arms forward with this impact frame, but I really feel like if they were going to do this shot, they should have just had him completely move his hands to follow through with the Kamehameha. I don't know. It just feels a little bit janky overall and kind of like thrown together. It doesn't look bad to me necessarily, but I think it's just not as great as one that's like directly, you can kind of tell it's just directly taken from the anime source material. We have the 18 key, which this shot right here, raw. Very, very cool. Definitely like this shot a lot, if I do say so myself. Very, very nice. Excuse me. I like that we have Goku teleport away. This shot is really, really cool. I definitely like this with Goku teleporting in and out with this blue space. Definitely a very nice way as well to kind of use some assets and not really have too much like detail, but also use them in a way that's dynamic and interesting. And this is the type of shot, this is what I'm talking about. You can tell that this right here was yoinked right from a shot from the anime, whereas when Goku did the Kamehameha, that was definitely the intern's work. Like, this right here looks like a fantastic shot of GZ Goku. Looks just like the anime to me. We have Goku begin to punch away at Omega, which is pretty cool. Definitely like the effects in the background. Vegeta here definitely looks a little bit weird proportionally. I don't know if it's just because it's the shading and whatnot, but definitely his proportions here are certainly a little bit strange, right? Like, I feel like his chest is almost too big for his body, which is just kind of a little weird. It's definitely not too bad, though. We obviously have him cock his arm back and then move forward, right? This angle definitely looks a little bit weird with the slow-mo, but I think in actual motion this does look pretty cool. It's interesting that they blur the background as well to kind of emphasize on Vegeta's motion here, which is a good technique as well. And you do have a little bit of motion blur on the end with Vegeta's arm here, which is a nice little effect as well to kind of imply this heavy movement. And they cut right to a shot of Omega getting socked in the jaw, which is definitely a good cut. I think it's a lot easier to imagine that transition in your mind than the ones that we saw with the 12 key, right? Very nice with the follow through with the punch. Definitely like that a lot. And cutting out here, right, back basically to their literal back, right, where you have him kind of with his fist outstretched, and then bam, you know, going to this shot. I like that actually, because obviously even though it's not really like a crazy transition, you kind of understand, oh, okay, we were just having a close-up of Vegeta and Goku was just kind of off frame. I like that. Interesting that they already have Vegeta set up for another attack, but I suppose that makes sense then. That way they don't have to animate as much, right? They can already have him kind of in position. We have Vegeta turn around to then kick Omega, which this shot does look pretty cool. Definitely like that. Again, motion blur looks very nice. It's always kind of funny to see like almost a leg on a stick asset. This shot of Goku is very good. Well, okay. Maybe I'm thinking of the next one. Goku's face is definitely a little bit janky. This almost looks like a story asset with Goku here. I do like the hair moving. I like the tail moving. I like the motion lines as well. It definitely looks like he is actually flying, right? But this asset is definitely pretty janky, for sure. I wish it looked a little bit better, to be honest with you, especially for an anniversary LR. Nonetheless, though, obviously we have Goku come up here with no movement at all on the PNG asset before we have him wind up to do the knee. I will say the knee looks very good for sure. Definitely like that. The little air effects as well that they have for the knee making impact with the enemy. That is definitely very cool. A very nice touch, right? Definitely kind of like an unnecessary thing, but I think it's a good way to emphasize the actual impact and a little bit of like the knockback from the hit. Very cool. We have Vegeta jump in. I like this use of the impact frame here, right? They don't have to actually animate him fully like kicking through, right? Because you can see there's the wind up here, and then basically he's already in Omega's face or legs, I guess. Nonetheless, though, I like this kick. I think the follow-through is pretty decent on it. And we have Goku spin around over the back of Omega. This is another shot, too, that I really feel like if we could actually see what Goku looked like, this would be a nicer looking shot. But Omega's goofy sprite, disgusting pixels on screen is blocking us from seeing the action, unfortunately. But obviously, Goku flipping over here actually looks really, really nice. I love the follow-through on the flip, too, right? Like, this looks super nice with him just getting that little bit of extra movement. A great way to just kind of emphasize it. And it's these little touches that really bring these essays together for sure. And how could I forget, obviously, this yellow impact frame. I also like that a lot. Very GT-esque for sure. We have the card art pop up on the screen. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. Vegeta's technique. Basically, just a PNG again flying back. I feel like I've been saying that a lot, which is not something I should be saying for an anniversary LR. But we have Vegeta obviously wind his arm back, and then we have the Ki Blast fly down. I do like the look of the Ki Blast. They definitely look pretty good. The smoke looks nice as well. This shot is really good. I love the lighting here. I love this nice close-up of Vegeta. It looks very good. Goku kind of just standing there does look a little bit funny. And obviously you can see his eyes do look a little bit weird. They almost look more like Spider-Man goggles that are on his mask rather than like eyes for an anime character. We do have Goku teleport away, and this is the super sick shot from the 18 key for sure. This is definitely the best part, I think, easily. We have Goku fly in. Gotta say, I love the shading work that they did on him. With obviously this is supposed to be like the light from the blasts, right? Sort of like illuminating and unilluminating his face with the shadows, right? As he's sort of coming down to the ground in the middle of the Vegeta's technique. Really, really like that lighting effect. And this, look at this. Look at the difference in the assets here. You can see this is like some of the stinky stuff that I've been pointing out where Goku's face looks a little bit weird. It almost looks like a little bit of an older story asset. To bam! Look at that, right out of GT. I don't know what they were cooking up in those other scenes because clearly they know how to do it, bro. This is such a nice shot here with Goku moving forward and a lot of nice little minimal movement. You can see even his arms move just the slightest bit, which is such an unnecessary thing. But again, it makes these animations feel a lot more alive, which I really appreciate. We have Goku flying in towards the camera. I definitely like the sliding effect. Very interesting angle, but obviously makes sense considering the angle that we're seeing this from. With Goku's mouth now in the frame. With him screaming. We get this side shot of him flying into Omega. And obviously the shot of him with the impact frame. And then of course he will end up sort of going through him and behind him with the Dragon Fist effect appearing next to him with a little bit of the blue electricity. I will say I really like this shot a lot. I do think though in practice it feels like it doesn't have a lot of impact, which I know you might be thinking like, huh, this animation looks like it doesn't have a lot of impact. To me personally, even when I was watching this in the full-time speed, right, the explosion is pretty cool at the end. Even when I was watching this in full-time speed, especially for how much the build-up was there, right, I really didn't feel like that the actual hit of the Dragon Fist had much impact. Like, it kind of just feels like it bonks Omega, right? Like, you see it make contact with him, bam, and then he's through, right? It doesn't really feel like a lot of force put behind it. It feels like he's moving fast, but it doesn't really feel like Omega's kind of in the equation of taking this attack, in my opinion. Okay. So we now move on to the standby skill, which of course starts off with our favorite protagonist, well, unfortunately out for the count. I really like this shot, first of all. This was one thing that I noticed right away when I saw this, before Goku even gets in the frame. This really cool angle of the camera zooming in and panning in like this into the crater. That is super neat. I don't think I've ever seen them pan a shot like this where they're like, it's kind of weird. They're like panning down and in, but also kind of like crooked. I don't know, like crooked in a good way. It's a cool shot. I definitely like this angle a lot. Very unique for sure. Okay, so now we have, right, Goku then lying on the ground here, which the lighting, again, I gotta say, this whole essay really nails the lighting of GT. When I look at these essays, they absolutely just scream to me the GT art style. I don't think there's any denying that. With the coloring and the shading and whatnot, right, perfectly GT in my opinion. We have Goku lying on the ground saying, "Hey, yo, dog, it's Spear Bomb time." Obviously, we have this shot panning over this very nice asset of Goku laying there. Taking a quick break from the battle, taking a quick snooze. It is kind of interesting how long they linger on this shot. I feel like they linger on it for quite a long time. Granted, Goku does have 2 voice lines during this time, so I suppose that does make sense. But nonetheless, it still feels like they kind of linger on it for a while. So obviously, after this shot is here, which looks very nice, it's interesting to me that this is the same animation. I kind of get the feeling that they didn't know how to transition between these scenes. Maybe this is how it is with the anime, again, unfortunately, because both of my people that I usually use the reference videos for have not uploaded the GT version of it. We cannot see if that is actually how it was in the animation. But of course, I mean, I suppose it makes sense because you're going from underground to, you know, now above ground, right? But obviously we have GT Vegeta rise to his feet. And boy, oh boy, I really gotta say, I love the power up for Vegeta that happens in a moment here. First of all, there's some very nice close-up shots of him. This shot is very, very nice. The mouth flaps are a lot better than Goku's that will be later on in the revival finish skill. But yeah, Vegeta looks good here. Definitely really, really like this close-up shot. Nice little bit of details. Also some fruit punch. Always surprising to see that in Dokkan 2. Not Dokkan 2 like Dokkan number 2. Dokkan also. I will say, not a big fan of this shot. The first time I saw this with everybody landing, I actually laughed. Because, like, dog, they are literally just sliding the PNGs down. And not to mention, when they actually land, they're not really having much landing, not knockback, recoil. Like, they don't really feel like they actually land. You basically just see them get close to the ground, and then bam, their feet get fixed in the same position. Same thing with Gohan here, right? His feet kind of land, and then bam, they're in the right position. I feel like there could have been a bunch more in-between frames, and not to mention, I feel like the characters could have just not looked like PNGs that just slid down. I feel like they could have done it a little bit better. But again, that is another thing that I kind of have a feeling that that's just how the anime did it. Nonetheless, though, I love this shot of Vegeta here talking. He looks good when he wipes his mouth. And, of course, the Super Saiyan power-up looks great, and I love the colors that they picked for this. Obviously, again, mimicking that GT art style. Looks so good. Definitely love the lighting, love the electricity effects on this. Very, very nice. We have this shot here, which I will say, it is a little bit jarring to go from that much of a close-up to this, especially with how thick the like dark lines are on here on Vegeta, right? It looks like a very stylized shot with this, right? And then you cut to this immediately, which looks like a bunch of like far away PNGs just kind of copy pasted onto this background, right? It is a little bit weird if I'm being honest, but I think it works well enough for sure. We have everybody power up, which definitely looks really cool. Again, I think the lighting looks nice. And we have a transitional shot to basically what is the card art. It's kind of interesting that they just basically use that as a sort of just scene in the actual standby skill. Very interesting. Again, though, definitely like the colors of this. I like this shot. It looks good. I love the key, and I love the little lines as well that they have coming off of the aura. I think that is definitely a nice touch. I think it's just kind of like a little bit jarring with the transitions from this scene. Going from Vegeta being like this to then like this, right? And I would have loved if they would have done like a camera twist rather than just cutting to this, right? Even especially with that black frame in between. I would have loved if instead of doing that, they would have spun the camera to eventually arrive on this angle. I think that would have been much cooler in my opinion, but definitely not bad with what is there, of course. Okay, so now we begin the 18 key and the 12 key specifically for this, of the exchange, I keep kind of want to calling it exchange, I'm sorry, the standby skill. We have this shot of everybody standing here. Everybody does have a nice little bit of minimal movement here, or at least the boys in the front too. You can see obviously Gohan and Goten sort of moving their arms a little bit, which is pretty cool. Then we do have everybody decide to blast off after we get the card art here. Again, very interesting for the 12 key and the 18 key. They kind of have like an establishing shot and then they go right to the card art. Very interesting for both versions of the 12 key of this card. Oh boy. So this one ended up being a story asset. That's the reason why I know that this exists. But my gosh, Vegeta, what did they do to you? This is another moment where I definitely get the feeling like this is just supposed to be how it looks in the original source material of this scene in GT, but like, man, I do feel like there are some points when it comes to adapting a show or something into another medium where you can improve upon the source material if the source material looks like this. But nonetheless, it is still a pretty cool shot despite Vegeta's extremely goofy looking face. I definitely like the lighting effects of the power-up. This, funny enough, acid of Vegeta looks sick. This right here looks awesome. It's just the shot right before doesn't look as awesome, if I'm being honest with you. But I really like the way that they do the light on here, right? These couple of frames of the white sort of beams kind of sprawling out before sort of shooting up into the sky to then make this impact frame is really cool, right? Again, I really like this shot here. It's so good. The lighting looks so nice. The key on Vegeta looks great, right? I definitely can't say enough nice things about this shot. It looks good. And again, the coloring, spot on with the GT coloring style, right? Definitely looks really, really good. We have the boy fly forward, which I will say this fly position looks a little bit weird as he's going forward, right? Just kind of moving forward like this. Technically, they can do that, but it just looks a little bit awkward until he finally changes positions here. Which, ironically enough, this position, he doesn't even actually attack. You can see that he actually teleports away behind Omega with a very nice kick. Definitely have to say, that shot right there, high-key underrated. That kick is mad nice. Look at this. So we have, right, Vegeta standing behind. Again, another moment where I wish these stinky sprites weren't in the way, bro. It would be so much easier to see. But we have Vegeta actually wind up for the kick, right? You can see some very nice motion blur back there. And as he kicks a very elongated leg, for one, I feel like characters in GT kind of had a little bit longer legs. Maybe that's just me, like, overthinking it. But nonetheless, this is just another example of the angles, you know, kind of being used to their advantage. Obviously, the foot is closer to the camera than the rest of the body. Looks very good. We have Omega fly away with Trunks now jumping into the fray with a little teleport. And this is interesting. I feel like the GT essays, we've seen this a couple times, where they kind of use an impact frame here to basically like imply movement, and then that way they don't have to animate the actual character moving, which is interesting. A good way to cut corners, and it still looks pretty good, right? But obviously we have Trunks hit him up into the sky. Again, I feel like this doesn't really have a ton of impact either. I think that's one thing that's pretty consistent with these essays with the standby skill. But again, maybe that's just because they're literally using a PNG and just kind of having it, you know, do its thing and shake the camera and have some little motion lines there. You know, obviously sort of trying to imply the movement, right? Trunks teleports away and we have an immediate cut to Vegeta. I kind of wish there was a little bit of a better transition for this, if I'm being honest. But this shot of Vegeta does look very nice. And once we finally get up to here, like, dog, GT Vegeta has never looked better than this SA. I promise you. Besides that one shot in the beginning, we're not going to talk about. GT Vegeta looks fantastic here, right? Definitely looks very good. We have a zoom in to the face, which I actually quite like as a transition to the fist. I think that is really cool for sure. Trunks kicking away. I do like that they add this little bit of extra leg movement here, with obviously Trunks, you know, kind of shifting his legs after he gets the kick. Very, very cool. We have Goten and Gohan here. I definitely like that their hair flows a little bit in the wind here. Again, the coloring. Can't say enough good things about it. It looks exactly like the GT style. Looks nice. We have them sort of teleport away. Not sure if I'm the biggest fan of this kind of like teleport slash into transmission effect, right? Because I feel like I've definitely seen it better done in other essays rather than just kind of having a blur and then the PNG be covered by a little bit of blurriness. Hold up. Hydrate or dihydrate, baby, you already know. So, I feel like it could be done a little bit better, but it's not too bad. It's definitely not the worst one I've ever seen. We have them now teleport in, right, with Goten readying up the Kamehameha. I quite like this a lot. Obviously, we have the impact frame to sort of start this shot up. And we do have the beam shooting off of him. I quite like that. I think the key on him also looks very nice, too. Gohan teleports in a little bit far off. I wish that this had a little bit more transitional frames, right? With him actually, you know, properly lining up. Oh, no. I just noticed how awkward Omega looks there. He looks way too big, especially compared to Goten. That's just a stinky sprite moment, though. That kind of rips you out of the immersion a little bit, unfortunately. But that's not the fault of the essay. That's the fault of the sprites. Regardless, though, again, man, I really wish there was a little bit more transitional frames here, right? with Gohan basically just pulling back to ready up the Kamehameha, right? I wish there was a little bit more in between that. The key effects do look nice, though. Definitely love the Kamehameha effects that they use for this, right? For this section specifically. I love the blue beams. I like that they actually feel like they have a little bit of glow to them. And it kind of has this, like, you know, it's a little bit more white in the middle and it gets bluer at the edges. Definitely a very nice touch. We have this shot, which is pretty cool. I will say, I do think Gohan's hands look pretty awkward here, to be honest with you. Just a little bit of a nitpick, but I think they definitely do. I like this impact frame, though, as a transition to them firing it. And this shot, though, is very nice of them actually shooting the Kamehameha. Looks good. Clothes fluttering around. We obviously have the beams clash in the middle. Definitely love the effects on the beams clashing, by the way. Let me go back to that real quick. Yeah, this. Definitely very cool. I love when they do little explosion effects like this and make them look super interesting and unique and dynamic. Again, it's something that's so underappreciated when it comes to these Dokkan animations, but it's why we do this series, so we can check out little stuff like this. We have the explosion, obviously from the Kamehamehas, and then it dissipates. So now we have the 18 key super. Alright. This already kind of looks a little bit awkward. I feel like Trunks and Goten are in a little bit of like a weird kind of position here. I definitely like, again, the lighting and the key, though. We obviously have this just kind of interesting shot before it goes to Vegeta bulking up and powering up. Definitely like that impact frame there. And again, Vegeta looks very nice. We transition to the card art once more. And then we have all of them standing here. So this is kind of interesting. This shot here, correct me if I'm wrong. Vegeta is being a bum here. There we go. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this shot not just the sort of establishing shot after everybody pulls up? Is this shot not just this one, but zoomed out a little bit? Interesting. It is indeed. Look at that. Look at how, if we click here, and then I guess we would have to click, where would it be? Like right after the card art? Here. Yeah, that's definitely the same shot. Interesting. Same shading and everything from what I can tell. The other one's just a little bit zoomed in. Very, very interesting. I did not notice that upon my first viewing of this. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you. I kind of wish they would have done something a little bit more original for that, rather than just kind of reusing it. But, I mean, you know, obviously it's a way for them to cut corners and they don't have to animate as much and, you know, all the rest. Nonetheless, though, instead of them just standing there, obviously this time the little bit of a difference is that they actually speed off. It is interesting too because the impact frame that Vegeta has, right, he immediately flies forward after that. But yeah, interesting that this shot is like almost like a different version kind of, or I guess the 18 key is almost like a continuation of the standby skill. Sort of interesting for sure. I don't really like that the characters sort of go out of the aura. I feel like they definitely could have done a little bit of a better job of having them actually like be in the aura, right? But I think the auras actually moving look pretty good. Definitely like that little bit of the edge where they actually have a little bit of their opacity lowered towards the tails, right? You can see as they kind of fly away, they sort of dissipate a little bit, which is pretty cool. You have the Ki Blast fired off by Trunks. That shot definitely looks pretty good. I like this red background that they picked as well. And these blasts from everybody look really good too. Even though it is just the character standing there, I do quite like this a lot. We have another bootleg Vegeta's technique with Gohan kneeing Omega Shenron in the back here. This is really weird though, I will say. The fact that they have this go from like Gohan, Trunks, and Goten shooting away at Omega to then having Gohan appear back here. I think he teleports in. You can kind of see the orange start there, and then he finally actually comes in a moment. You just can't tell that he teleported in because Omega is in the way. Get out of the way, you goofy. Hydrate or dihydrate once again. But yeah, nonetheless, though, we have Omega actually come through. And it's interesting, too, because you can see that this is Gohan kind of like winding up to do this attack. But it's weird because now Omega is facing him and he wasn't when the sprite was going over to him. To be fair, though, I think that may also just be a sprite moment, to be 100% frank with you. We have him Knee Omega, which I think this knee actually does seem to have a little bit of more impact than some of the other attacks that we've seen throughout this essay, which is nice. We do have Gohan actually kind of like recoil a little bit from this, which is pretty cool, right? You can see him kind of move and shift his legs, which is nice. We have Goten fly in and punch Omega in the face, which looks good. Trunks teleports in and blasts him away, which looks pretty good. And then Vegeta comes into the shot, and this is definitely a very nice shot of this essay for sure. I like this shot of Vegeta. I love the growing green key. Vegeta's face does look a little bit weird here, but I think I'm also going to chalk this up to a little bit of an L from GT, because I'd have to imagine this is just them trying to stay loyal to the source material rather than just this actually just looking like a little bit of a wonky asset. But I do like this as it's pushed forward, and when we finally transition to the screaming face, this definitely looks pretty good. I really like this shot, actually. It looks pretty cool. The Ki Blast looks really, really nice, by the way. I love the green. I love the way that the Ki flows within the actual beam. I think that that is really cool. Definitely a very nice touch for sure. And this shot is very nice as well. I definitely like this, with everybody kind of standing there watching as obviously they fired off all their attacks and Vegeta's beam crashes towards the ground, right? We have this nice shot where all of them are sort of in black and white before we have the explosion where it actually makes contact with the ground, and you can see then a sort of mushroom cloud, or not a mushroom cloud, a aftershock cloud. I forget what you call this particular shape. I mean, I guess it's just a half sphere, but you know what I mean. Obviously, this looks really nice, with this actually growing from the beam attack from Vegeta. I think that that's pretty cool. We have a little bit of smoke on the edges as well. And that is the end of that animation. I'd have to imagine that that will probably be a KO screen as well if you do KO with that, so that is pretty cool. Alright, so now we have the revival skill. So if you get knocked out by the enemy, we have a start here where Vegeta is conked out on the ground. My man says the rest is up to you, Goku. We have a very nice close-up shot of Vegeta here, though. I do like this with him kind of gritting his teeth before he eventually does pass out. Definitely a very nice close-up. All the close-ups in these animations are really nice looking. There goes my man. Rest in peace, Vegeta. He doesn't actually die. This shot, though, of Goku rising up out of the ground with the Spirit Bomb is so sick. I love the rocks, the menacing text as well at the top. Funny JoJo reference, of course. This shot of Goku looking down here looks so raw. The tattered clothes look great. The rocks flying up look fantastic. I definitely really like this shot as kind of, you know, establishing obviously Goku rising out of the rubble. It's interesting that they do a lot of cuts in this essay, right? Like they cut from Goku rising to then him actually, you know, being more in the frame with him rising up to then cutting over to his face, then being more zoomed in. Very interesting choices there. But I do like this shot a lot. It kind of looks like emo Goku, to be honest. It is a little bit weird because obviously, you know, it just kind of looks like the whole screen is black, but obviously that's just like how his hair is. But I really like this close-up shot. It looks good. I love the clothes kind of swaying in the wind there too. Looks good. They nailed the energy for the Spirit Bomb. So this was a section that I was really excited to talk about because this just looks so good, dude. The energy effects coming towards the Spirit Bomb look mad nice. Oh my gosh, the little dots coming towards it look good. We obviously have the sky sort of clear away here, which looks really good too. Obviously from the Spirit Bomb's energy. And then we have Goku standing here. I definitely think he looks a little bit weird here. I gotta be 100% honest with you. I think the lip flaps definitely don't help. But I think it's either like the angle or it's how static he looks. Something about it is a little bit off-putting me, but again, I'm venturing to guess that this is just kind of how it was in the actual GT anime. However, I love the lighting on this shot. Definitely very nice. I love the blue glow that sort of emanated around Goku here. Very nice. Definitely love that a lot. We obviously transition to all of the energy flowing into the Spirit Bomb. This section is so nice. all these little dots floating into the middle of the screen before we have the dots also appear here with the little sparkles and the swooshies, bro. I guess that's what I'm going to call them. The little bits of energy flying towards you looks so cool. They nailed this for sure. I really, really like that a lot. Then obviously we have the big energy in the middle, which kind of obviously represents the spirit bomb sort of forming together. I definitely like this little lighting effect here too. Looks great if I do say so myself. We have this shot of Earth and obviously all of the energy traveling towards Earth for the universal spirit bomb, obviously coming from the universe. This shot looks so good, dude. It's so nice. They really nailed the aesthetic of all these little beams coming towards Earth. And then, of course, following up with them actually entering the spirit bomb and it growing looks great. It's a fantastic way to kind of capitalize on this shot. I really, really like the way that this looks. Definitely knocked that out of the park for sure. We then have this shot of Kid Goku talking here with, again, his face looking a little bit awkward. But again, I think that's just because it's GT. He looks down. I will say his eyes looking down do look a little bit weird here. I was a little bit, like, not weirded out by the way that they move, but, like, they almost kind of remind me of, like, Thomas the Train or something with how the way that they move. Regardless, though, we then get this shot, which is so good. Oh, I love this shot so much. I wish it was, like, no text because it's such a cool shot of Kid Goku. Obviously, his hair fluttering in the wind, the lighting effects coming down here over him looks so good. Obviously, this is supposed to be like the spirit bomb energy and the light coming from it sort of like glistening down looks so nice. You do cut. It's an interesting cut, I will say, because it goes from Goku standing there, right, with his hands in the air, to then zoomed into his face, and then he begins to throw it, which I just think is kind of an interesting way to do it. But yeah, we have Goku actually wind back a little bit, right, with the Spirit Bomb, which this, of course, looks kind of weird paused, but I think in motion this looks really good with him actually throwing it. And then a very nice zoom in, some very nice perspective, with obviously him whipping it back, right, to then sort of zooming in on his face as he is throwing it. This asset looks so high quality, dude. It's insane. With obviously the motion lines looking fantastic. Very, very nice way to incorporate those in there. And then finally we have the follow through where you can see that actually they zoom out a little bit and Goku actually throws the Spirit Bomb down, which looks great. Definitely a fantastic shot. I think it's easily the best one in here, right? I don't think there's any doubt about that. Obviously, they focused on the Spirit Bomb. Everybody was laughing about this. This is so goofy, bro. This shot looks really good, obviously, with the Spirit Bomb hitting him. Stinky sprites. We need to abolish these, bro. They need to do something about this. This is really what I think really does in a lot of these Dokkan animations, right? Omega just getting obliterated here is literally just the way that they do this is they kind of layer over like these splotches kind of to make it emulate the character actually sort of, you know, disintegrating. But man, it just looks so goofy with this silhouette of Omega here, just kind of standing there, like, not like, you know, reacting really. He's just like, oh, ow. Definitely hope they do something about the sprites in the future. But obviously Omega gets obliterated and the rocks look good. The energy looks good. And of course, we have the Spirit Bomb fly off here, which also looks really nice. I definitely like the perspective on this shot. And of course, it flies up into the sky and kaboomy. We get a very nice explosion. Very interesting effect they decided to use, I will say, on this section right here. Let's go back a little bit. This little, like, dark ball, it looks very interesting. I'm sure that that's probably how it was in the anime, and they're just trying to emulate it. But it's so really looking. I'm not gonna lie to you. But the explosion looks good. Definitely feels like it pays off with it actually destroying Omega within it. And I love how they have the blue light kind of dissipate here to the giant crater that obviously the Spirit Bomb made. And of course, the final KO screen, which looks so good. We have a cut to the edge of the crater with Goku obviously there. Everybody running towards him. Who are all these characters? Can we identify everybody from here actually? Hercule, Vegeta, Bulma, because that's blue hair. Trunks, Goten, Chi-Chi, Gohan, and I'm assuming, oh, Pan. That would make sense. Yeah, okay. Everybody running towards Goku is a very nice shot here, and they do just cut pretty quick to this, which, I mean, to be fair, I don't know how else they would have transitioned in between this, with all of them sort of running up to Goku and then going to Pan's face. But I definitely like this a lot. This is a very nice KO scream, a very heartfelt moment for sure. Definitely a very, very good one. And it's kind of sort of ironic in a way that you die to win to die. Very interesting way of, you know, presenting this scene, I think. But definitely a very nice homage to this scene. Definitely a very good representation of it. I think overall, with the GT boy... Hi, Piccolo. Piccolo just wanted to make a cameo, apparently. I think when it comes to these guys, right? I am definitely a little bit mixed when it comes to the animations for the GT boys. Because on one hand, I think, honestly, that their 12 key and their 18 key, for, frankly, both animations, really don't do it for me. I think there's a lot of things that they could improve upon. And honestly, I think that there are a lot of TO animations that do what they do better in some of the scenes that they have with their 12 and 18 keys. Now, I understand that obviously the focus of these is on the standby skill, and it's kind of no wonder that the standby skill and the revival finish skill are definitely the best looking animations out of the bunch, like bar none, right? Of course, because not only is it the new mechanic, but, you know, they always put the most effort into those, which is kind of funny because those are the animations you see the least. You know, I always thought that was kind of a funny thing about the way that Dokkan works, but I digress. Obviously, you know, they still do look pretty good overall. I just think that personally for me, they're not as good as they could be. And I kind of feel like, I don't know, maybe this is a bit of a hot take. Because personally, I was definitely a fan of the gods last year. But I almost think that for some of the scenes, the Super Saiyan 4s from last year looked better with their animations. I don't know if that's a hot take. You can let me know in the comment section below. And please feel free to let me know how you feel about these guys. I definitely don't think their animations are bad by any means. I just think that they kind of use some techniques that were a little bit aged for the SAs, even though you can tell that they are still, you know, modern SAs. I don't think that these will necessarily age as well, obviously, besides this, right? Like, this will be fine for all of eternity. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that they're necessarily bad or the worst I've ever seen. I just don't think that they're incredible or anything groundbreaking in terms of the super attacks. Obviously, though, the standby skill and the revival finish skill are like some of the best animations in the game, right? Definitely the finish skill, right? I think easily is one of the best animations in the game. I think it's better than the standby skill, if I may be so bold. I mean, bro, it's the Spirit Bomb. It's the whole point of the anniversary. That's what they're focusing on. So, of course, they're going to make that animation look as good as possible. But again, I really do like the style of these because I think it is a very faithful style to GT, which is pretty cool. So, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Keep an eye out for the Boo video. I am very excited to do that one as well and see how those stack up to these guys. Spoiler alert, I think they may be a little bit better, but we're going to find out in that video. So look forward to it. Let me know again your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. It always helps out your boy. And keep an eye out. I will also be doing animation analysis videos on the unfeatured units, the Ice and Nova Shinron, as well as the Piccolo and Gotenks. So definitely keep an eye out for that video too when that eventually comes out later this week. But I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Dokkan Assets out.
Hold it!
Well, it looks like we aren't done yet. Yeah, I got you, didn't I? I'm real glad the Dokkan World decided to upload this video right before I started editing, because actually that kind of worked out perfectly. So thank you, Dokkan World. Of course, link to the video in the description, and everybody else that we talked about in this video today will be linked in the description. But for some reason, Dokkan doesn't like to throw in the KO screens of these animations into the actual Twitter previews. Why? I don't know, because you would think they would want to show off all the animations they have to offer, but maybe it's so that like you find it yourself in the game and it's like a kind of cool little Easter egg. Either way though, we do have some KO screens from all of these animations that I just want to take a quick little look at, because I do think that they are pretty cool. After the explosion that we saw that kind of ended off this super attack, it actually transitions into the Dragon Fist flying away, which is so cool. That is definitely a way better way to end that animation, if I do say so myself. Look at that, ending with Goku as well, flying in the sky there as the Dragon Fist fades away into the background. And Vegeta even comes through to join him. That is so sick. Very, very cool KO screen. Definitely love that a lot. We then have because I believe that only, unfortunately, the 18 key seems to only have one, or at least from what Dokkan World was able to find, with the standby skill finishing move. Obviously, we have the one with Pan included there. By the way, wow, that is a ridiculous number. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I included that one, because I know for a fact that when I cover the Buu Saga ones, this is such a long animation, holy cow. I know for a fact when I cover the Buu Saga ones, I was also going to put these in the video. So it's nice to see that they have a KO screen as well. It is a little bit unfortunate that some of these guys kind of don't, right? Like we are probably assuming that for this green super attack, like this will be a KO screen. But I think that the 12 key, which would just be the end of this animation, yeah, will basically just end with Omega just kind of getting the disintegration. So it looks like, unfortunately, that doesn't have a KO screen. But at least this one does. So that is a nice little addition. All right, for real, though, have a good one.